Nice to be number 2.
6 times so far. Well, they want to make history. Here's a good way to make history,
recording
right?
now?
Okay,
It's a very
we're on the
scary
record here.
Dysfunction.
Good morning, everyone. Happy New
morning.
Year.
Happy New Year.
Welcome to the special meeting of the Board of Directors of the BLDC. I'd like to call the meeting to order. We have no old business as far as I know. We're going to jump right into the resolutions. There are 3 resolutions before us this morning for this special meeting. The first one, 23-1, a resolution of BLDC authorizing the president to enter into a real estate option agreement with 100 Save Around Parkway LLC for 2 parcels at the Charles Street Business Park. Sarah, you sent a bunch of emails out about background on this. Do you want to add anything at this point?
Yeah, no, I'll just say that Save Round approached us about getting both of these lots. It's the lot right to the north of them as well as the lot right to the south of them. They are looking to build a facility on behalf of their tenant on the lot to the north, and then potentially build themselves a facility on the lot to the south. In the interim, we would help them locate at another location. This is important because putting this on the record will allow Save Around to take this to their tenants, and their tenants could take this to their board of directors and move this process forward. So it's not a done deal yet. We did include a provision in the option that it times out after 90 days. So if they do not move forward with this option will rescind itself. But that's the question there. You have a question.
Well, that's my question. I just, want to make sure that if they don't do anything, first, we would like to know who the tenant is, obviously.
Yep, so it's Innovation Associates. I said a little bit of background on that yesterday. It's they're moving from their facility in Johnson City. The space is too small for them.
But this place isn't big enough for them either.
So no, they're moving into the Save Around facility, which will get them around 38,000.
Yeah, 40.
And they're building a 50,000 square foot facility
But
on the
that's
parcel
not
to the
big
north.
enough either.
They needed about, 80.
I heard as much as 100,000.
They have
Yeah.
100,000 now at least.
So the problem with their current facility is not necessarily the space, it's the layout.
Yeah.
And Joel can speak to that a little bit more, but they just can't realize the efficiencies that they need, so they're spending way more money and manpower to get less product. They'd like to keep the number of staff that they have and increase their product output by designing a facility that actually enables them to have a better flow through their factory. Because it used to be, you've told me.
It was a coating plant, it was the Azon plant where they manufactured blueprint paper, inkjet paper and so forth. And it was just kind of cobbled together, they added on a product line, they started making fax paper, they added on to the building. And it's just, kind of a poor layout from a manufacturing standpoint. You like to have, raw materials enter the building one area, then you process them, have finished goods, etc. You don't have that kind of flow in that layout. So this would help a lot.
And they feel confident that the amount of space that they can get in the new facility will be sufficient for their needs. They didn't express any desire to expand in the future. I believe the other property they were looking at was a similar number of square feet.
So is it safe to say, Sarah, that they're asking the BLDC to take action, have a resolution, so Innovation Associates can bring to their board the Binghamton location as, an option in more ways than one for what they're going to do to expand? Is that
Correct.
basically what they're asking?
And their board wants to feel confident that this is actually viable and that it's not just Save Around saying, oh yes, we could get control of the property, but that Save Around actually has a document that would enable them to do so.
But the BLDC is saying that, look, this is not in perpetuity, that you've got a 90-day window to act in some way, or the option agreement is off the table.
Correct.
I mean,
Yep, and there should be a decision by February because that's when Innovation Associates board meeting is I think February 1st or 2nd.
The big picture here is that if we could get them to locate there, it'll be a huge infusion of people working around Clinton Street,
Correct.
which is an area of focus for the city.
Yeah,
It would
we're gonna
be
talk about that in a
tremendous.
minute, but it fits directly in line with what our plan for Clinton Street is in terms of getting more people on the street who can go to restaurants and banks and other establishments.
One thing I read in the contract said that they are gonna try to get a pilot. Is that always what people try to get, a pilot? And also, is that a deal breaker if they don't get a pilot?
So that's standard language that we put in here, and we don't we don't only limit them to the things that we outline in due diligence, but we just put that in as
Okay.
options for what they can do. They will need to negotiate with the
Mhm.
IDA. Save Around has a pilot on their current
Right.
facility that will need to be transferred or otherwise renegotiated with the IDA. I do anticipate that they will go to the IDA for a pilot. I did not hear that it was necessarily a deal breaker in our meeting with Innovation Associates. The number that Save Around quoted them for the construction, Innovation Associates was very happy with. I think it was $75 a square foot. And since Save Around owns, it's not necessarily that Save Around owns the construction company, but they have an associated construction
Yes, they
company.
do, yeah.
They can keep the cost down more so than they'd be able to with most other contractors.
So can part of this too, I'd imagine at our February meeting, we would have information for the members even before then, to what extent if Innovation Associates, their board says, you know, we're in, we do know that they were considering other sites within Broome County. Ours seems to have been most attractive to them, so that's a good sign.
But we only sell it if innovation goes forward, and so we're not
Yeah.
selling it to Save Around unless that happens.
Correct.
Correct.
It's- yeah, it's an
And
option.
quite honestly, Save Around has no need for those
Mhm.
properties unless this moves forward.
Right.
Just want to make sure we have language saying that, or that we don't sell it to them and then they don't do it.
Well, it's an option.
Yeah, that right now is an option.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, I
they can
think,
still execute the option, right? But
We
then
could-
They don't do anything with it.
and Brian, I can ask you this, if Innovation Associates goes to their board in February and they don't approve this deal. And Save Around comes back and says, well, we signed the option anyway. I believe we could just decline to,
I believe that was going.
because it's just a resolution authorizing the president to enter into an agreement, not requiring.
There was a. There's a right to serve the right to deny it.
That's
Yeah, there's language about at the agreement of both parties.
Yeah.
It's a 90-day action.
So it's 90 days they have to execute, and then there's a year-long period, it would time out at the end of the 1 year with the option to extend, but the option to extend would have to be at the agreement of both parties. So if we declined to extend the option, then it would not get extended.
Or we could even decline entering into the option.
Correct. Any other questions?
Any other questions?
Sounds like a good deal for all the parties.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Let's hope it works.
Exactly.
We have a motion. Mr. Zoll, thank you. Second,
Right.
thank you, Frank. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Right. Motion carried. Resolution 23-2, of the BLDC approving the Clinton Street Neighborhood Business District Plan prepared by Barton and Laguitas DPC. And I believe that plan was sent as part of the materials.
And I printed a copy in case anybody wants to look at it. I don't know if anybody has any questions. I felt the plan was more than sufficient. Yeah, it builds on the DRI application that they helped us prepare. The thing I think is really valuable in this is the market analysis. It's about the housing needs on that street, but it also talks about the housing needs in the greater metropolitan area and our statistical area, which is a 3-county region. So it'll be useful to us, not just in planning for Clinton Street, but also in planning for our housing needs across the city. I was very happy with the work that Barton and Laguitas did, specifically there with forward planning. And now forward planning has actually been engaged by the state on a number of different contracts since engaging with us. And I'm very, very happy with their work.
What's forward planning?
So it's a consulting firm based out of Pittsburgh, I
Okay.
believe. But they did a lot of the market analysis, right, yeah, they did a lot of the technical
Okay.
work, where Barton and Laguitas did a lot of the coordination and planning work along with them.
And then following BLDC, this will go to city council as
Yeah.
well for adoption.
Do I have a motion? Thank you, Susan. Second? Thank you, Betsy. Any further discussion? Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Motion carries.
One thing that innovation is one of the members, so they are also a startup new company. So I don't know if they want to then keep that designation, but if they do, we have to designate the space they're leasing or buying.
Yeah, we can definitely, we do that once a year, right?
No, it's just a one time.
A rolling,
This is IA. Okay. This is innovate, okay.
So is this information, I guess it's public now.
Yes, and we talked to Save Around and confirmed that that was. At this point, it's like I said, it's
I
not,
was curious about that.
Yes.
at this point, it's not, there's nothing necessarily to talk about publicly because there's no. This is the first step in getting the actual deal done, but
Right, but the news story is,
yes, yeah, potentially, but they would move to Bloomington, yep.
But I'm not sending out a news release about it.
I wouldn't.
Yeah,
if I were you.
hey, no, exactly.
Until
Wait
after
till
they-
We're on the record, exactly,
Right,
but
wait
that's,
till we have more solid news before
that's
we
correct.
play the trumpets.
It's a very interesting situation.
Yeah,
Hopefully, I think
it
we're-
moved very quickly and I appreciate the ability of you guys to get together so quickly and help us
It's
get
it's
this
an
over.
important work.
It's something that's been in motion for a while. So,
Well, anybody
going
who's,
back over
It's
a
a- Yeah,
year.
it's a hurry up and
So-
wait.
I've worked with those guys for 15 years and
Yeah, somebody helping them is crazy.
Which people?
IA innovation, yeah, I don't know. So resolution 23-2. Would authorize the president to enter into an agreement with the latest law firm PC. And again, there's been information circulated about this. Anything you want to add?
Yeah, and I'll pass
Sure.
this to the mayor and Brian.
Yeah, so essentially, we're at the point where Boscov's has retained legal counsel to help them draft the lease agreement with the BLDC. And so just from a capacity standpoint and also a need for a little bit more specialty with real estate standpoint, we need to go to an outside counsel. Brian was engaged with a couple firms, the Lattice Law Firm, they're out of Syracuse. They have a unique position and interest kind of in this building, having helped the city through many years, try to obtain grants for that and be involved in trying to get the state to recognize the rehabilitation. So their team and some of their principals through their government affairs and grant writing wing are very familiar with this project and have been doing it for many years. This is limited in scope to the Boscov's deal. We're not bringing them on as the BLDC's counsel. What I would like to see happen, and I've been talking to Sarah and Brian on this as well, given that we're having more activity, more option agreements on Charles Street, et cetera. I would like the BLDC to have outside counsel to be able to quickly review these things, that Brian is sitting on the board as a director, but not also make a staff that is doing a lot of other things for the city, do the economic development work. I would imagine that would go out as an RFQ, RFP, and then the board can decide, hopefully a local firm that could assist, and you guys would be in the driver's seat. For this thing, it is just specific to this lease, and that would be the only thing they'd work on.
I believe their lease with the IDA that they extended expires in March or April, so this is a quick engagement as well.
We hired a lobby group at the beginning of Rich's administration.
Mhm.
And, the Downtown Business Association paid for the first few months until we could get city council to see the benefits. Was it Velatus?
It was, yes, and
Okay,
the
that's what I
city has
thought, man.
retained that agreement from Binghamton Economic Development for
Well, this is where it starts working.
about 8 years, yeah.
Mhm.
And just, it's been one of the best returns on investment I think the city has made. We just got the Restore New York monies. We get infrastructure monies on an annual basis, millions of dollars a year. Now, that's just one part of this firm's business, but that's where they started
So it's
many years
basically
ago.
our lobbyist group working with Boscov's as their legal representative.
Not a lobbyist, but
It's not
their
the lobbyist
actual,
side of their firm. This is actually a real estate attorney who does real estate transaction. She deals with LBCs. She deals with this type of development in
Okay,
the Syracuse
good.
area. She does these.
It's a
types
very
of deals.
capable group.
And if we're gonna live with this deal and we want to negotiate a long-term deal,
Mhm.
we want someone who knows what they're doing, so that we're not stuck with something
Right.
for a long term. That's
If
bad.
we're gonna live with this deal.
No.
I know what
Yeah.
you mean.
yeah,
We're gonna be stuck with it for a long time, so we better make sure it's good.
Thank you, Boscov. Let the crying begin.
yeah.
Any questions on that?
So yeah, so I anticipate, maybe within the next month or so, we'll issue something for legal services for the BLDC, and then the directors can weigh in and decide what direction they want to go in for a more consistent retainer basis, like many firms provide in nonprofit boards.
And this is for a fixed period of time, so. there's a-
It's a fixed scope.
Yeah.
So the period of time we need it to be a certain amount of time, just so we can not have the idea have to renegotiate their lease again. But until the deal, we need them until the deal is
Do we
done.
know what kind of terms we're looking for? I mean, are we taking what they're giving us, or are we?
For the Boscov's lease, that's probably something I wouldn't want to discuss on the record, but my general, and I've said this publicly, is I want a long-term commitment from Boscov's, and I think Boscov's is looking for a commitment by the BLDC, the city, to provide upgrades as the landlord. And I think everyone, even outside of City Hall, elected officials, et cetera, know that whether Boscov's is there operating or not, that is a historic building that's important to the future of downtown Binghamton, just as it's been really important to its past. So 40 years of deferred maintenance, maybe more than 40 years,
It's expensive.
is the bills coming due. So we know that we can't fix that store in a year. So what can we do to say, Boscov's, you're going to be here for a period of time, and over that time, we have certain responsibilities, whether it's a dollar investment or specific projects that, we've been able to identify thanks to the BLDC supporting LaChase doing a whole review of that building. So we have a pretty good idea now. We're going to start on either side and then meet somewhere in the middle.
I think I need a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Thanks, Frank. Second? Saul, thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Any other business before the board this morning?
Do we know what the impact is? I mean, you probably do, I have no idea, what the impact of having Boscov's is?
Some, probably the most visited, it's most visited attraction in downtown Binghamton.
You know roughly how many people?
Did they say
I think
300,000?
that's
No, second to Saul.
That's right, that's right. I would say
Second.
the second most popular clothing
Almost
store in
fell out
downtown
of his
Binghamton.
chair.
Tied. So we think that it's between 200 and 300,000 visitors a year. Now, those same people coming, yes, something like 200 full-time and part-time employees probably swells to maybe 250 during the holiday time. They generate significant sales tax revenue, and I'm blanking on the number.
Well, their revenues were 17, so there you go. 8%,
Yeah. So
4%, right, for the city, right?
yeah, so for the city, I mean, I think it represents just for our budget alone, like a $800,000,
Yeah,
that goes directly into our coffers. So
And what we can't quantify is what the impact of not having Boscov's is, which has always been the challenge we've had with getting grant money from the state, is how do you quantify what it would be if it wasn't there? But that's what we're hoping to secure them, so we don't have to find out what that cost would be.
if Boscov's left tomorrow, BLDC and the people in this room would own that building with no tenant. And what do you do? And certainly anyone going in there, whatever the use is, would require financial incentives, tax breaks, grants that far exceed whatever we'd be giving to Boscov's right now, or giving the BLDC would be doing to the building right now.
But you have looked at that, if you converted that into apartments, for example, professionals living there, what that would look like.
I think there's a chance as we negotiate this lease that we could unlock some of the square footage in that property for a mixed use. And I think that's where the economics start to work better for the BLDC, by not just having general retail, but having a mix of uses, because it's such a large building. And Boscov's does not need all of the square footage that it currently has. And they're open to that.
How's the parking garage going next door?
We have a meeting with the folks today, me and Chuck and Sarah and the folks from Pike Development. The precast concrete production process is underway. They're not actually making the concrete yet, but they have to do shop drawings and certain engineering. We've sent our first series of checks to them, and that process is underway. And if you're ever out right over the border in Massachusetts, you can actually see the things being built when they are precast.
Road trip.
I went when before we built 7 Hawley Street. I went, and so if you like the brick color, I picked that one out. So
And if you
You
don't,
did-
somebody
if you
else
don't, it was Megan. Yeah.
They're actually the firm that rebuilt the Tampanzee Bridge.
Oh, okay.
That cast concrete.
Mm-hmm.
You mean the
Mario and
Momo.
Como Bridge.
No, Tappan Zee.
Tappan Zee.
Yes.
It's a Tappan Zee.
Did they find Hoffman?
Meadowlands.
Anything else this morning? All right, motion for adjournment.
Make a motion.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Saul, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you all very much for coming. Happy New Year.